Hello casual punut. This episode I am going to introduce you the second generation. Carlson Gracie. Originally born Eduardo Gracie, Carlson would have his name changed by his father Carlos Gracie during his early years due to Carlos believing that the letter C, and later R, would be a letter of power. Carlson Gracie would go on to become a legendary jiu-jitsu practitioner. His legacy started at just the age of 5, where he would compete at Campeonato Aberto de Jiu-Jitsu e Luta Livre, an open tournament between jiu-jitsu and submission wrestling. Carlson then went on to compete at Vale Tudo during the 50s and 60s, where he would reign supreme during his professional fighting career. However, Carlson was one of the first Gracie family members to splinter the family name. After an ongoing feud with his uncle Helio, Carlson would go on to open his own jiu-jitsu academies known as Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. These days you can see Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gyms all around the world, in all the major cities. Robson Gracie, also known as Carlos Robson Gracie. Robson is the second son of Carlos Gracie. Robson is a 9th-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu red belt who was also an instructor at the original Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy during the 1950s. Like many of his brothers, Robson would go on to compete in Vale Tudo, with numerous wins under his belt. Robson would also go on to become the bodyguard of Leonel Brizola, who was the brother-in-law of João Goulart, president of Brazil at the time. Robson would go on to father some of the greatest names in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu such as Ralph, Renzo, and Iain Gracie, and he is the current president of the Jiu-Jitsu Federation of Rio de Janeiro FJJERJ. Rayson Gracie is the third son of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu founder Carlos Gracie. Rayson Gracie became a 9th-degree red belt in the martial art. Rayson is widely regarded as the originator of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the state of Amazonas, which is also famous for the Ribeiro brothers, Saulo and Zande. The Amazonas state is widely considered as one of the most important cells of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the world. Rayson also had a huge influence on the growth of Jiu-Jitsu in the state of Bahia. Rayson Gracie, fourth son of Carlos Gracie, is widely considered to be one of the most respected figures in the martial art. Rayson was at the forefront of the growth of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the United States, where he spearheaded its growth and awareness of the art. Rayson is also considered to be important in developing the language of the Jiu-Jitsu. He's known to have created names for several techniques and one of the first in the Gracie family to produce and introduce colors to the BJJGI. Rayson is also the father to Rodrigo Gracie, a popular MMA and BJJ practitioner. Royce Gracie, widely regarded as one of the most important members of the Gracie family with their influence of the sport. Royce Gracie was the family's champion during the 1970s. Royce is considered by many to be the father of modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, thanks to his ideas and opinions on cross-training in different grappling arts. You can see Royce's influences through his other family members such as Rickson Gracie, Royce Gracie and many others. Sadly, Royce's tragic death happened on 6 June 1983, due to a paragliding accident. There is an era before and another one after Royce, exclaimed his cousin Royale Gracie. Carly Gracie, often referred to as the Lion of the Gracie family. Carly Gracie is the 11th child over Carlos Gracie, and 9th-degree red belt. Carly was the first Gracie family member to bring the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the United States in 1972. Carly is known to have a serious feud with his uncle Helio Gracie, which actually ended up in a fistfight. Carly was enlisted in the military, which resulted in him moving to the USA, where he taught Jiu-Jitsu in states such as Maryland, Connecticut, and Florida, before finally settling in California in 1979. Carly Gracie is the father of one of the most famous modern Gracie, Clark Gracie, and his brother Ralston. Carlos Gracie Jr., born 17 January 1956, Carlos Gracie Jr. is an 8th-degree red and white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Widely regarded as one of the best coaches in BJJ history, Carlos Gracie Jr. followed his brother Royce's example through cross-training. Carlos taught numerous world champions including Hall of Fame champions Kyra Gracie and Rolker Gracie. In 1994 Carlos Gracie Jr. would go on to found the Confederação Brasileira de Jiu-Jitsu (CBJJ), which would evolve into today's organization, the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation (IBJJF). He would also go on to be instrumental in the founding of the famous Gracie Barra team, one of the most well-known and respected Brazilian jiu-jitsu teams in the world. Krolen Gracie, revered by many as the successor to Royce Gracie as the family champion in the 1970s, Krolen is a 7th-degree coral belt and the son of Carlos Gracie. Although he was considered an incredible Gracie fighter, an underlying health condition would see him never reach the great heights of his brother Royce. Following that, Krolen would help found the original Gracie Barra Academy as well as open up a gym in the Florianopolis region of Brazil. Krolen would have a heavy influence with competitors such as Carlos Machado, Rayson Gracie, Alexandre de Souza and Pablo Popovich. Rayson Gracie is the 20th son of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu founder Carlos Gracie and the subsequently the youngest. Rayson was a huge advocate of the guard in BJJ, and this is where he developed his strongest set of skills. Rickson Gracie would go on to say that he was the best guard player of the Gracie family. Rayson had a huge influence in the south of Brazil, where he would teach at the Gracie Tijuca Academy, a gym which would famously be known for having a large amount of talent coming out of it. Rayson Gracie is known to help develop numerous world champions. Royce Gracie credits his time with Rayson as one of the main reasons for his success. Rayson Gracie, born 10 January 1952, Rayson Gracie is a 9th-degree red belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the eldest son of the late Helio Gracie. In 1987, Rayson was one of the first Gracie family members to bring Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the silver screen, where he was the technical advisor in the film franchise Lethal Weapon, where he would choreograph BJJ into several fight scenes. In 1993, inspired by Vale Tudo and the original Gracie Challenge matches, Rayson Gracie would team up with promoter and business executive Art Davie to create the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC as it's more commonly known as. Rayson Gracie would also go on to develop and write a book on the Gracie diet. Rolson Gracie, second eldest one of Grand Master Helio Gracie. Rolson Gracie is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu red belt and the pioneer of the sport in Hawaii. Rolson would be the first to establish a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu academy on the island. Rolson would be given the nickname Campeão, which meant champion in Portuguese. This name was earned through the surfing community in Rio de Janeiro, who respected his activities in Jiu-Jitsu. Rickson Gracie, born on 20 November 1958, Rickson Gracie is one of 9 sons of the late Grandmaster Helio Gracie. Rickson is widely regarded by many in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu hemisphere as the greatest BJJ practitioner of all time. This has been mentioned by numerous athletes including Ricardo Arona, Paulo Filho and UFC legend and BJJ black belt Damian Maia. Rickson made his name in Japan after competing in several Vale Tudo competitions during the 1980s and 1990s. Rickson would help make the sport what it is today and would later become an icon in the MMA community through his highly praised documentary, Choke. Rolker Gracie. Rolker Gracie is one of the main figureheads within the Gracie Jr team and is the 4th son of Helio Gracie. After his brother Rickson would leave Brazil for America, Rolker and his brother Royale Gracie would take the lead within the Gracie Jr team and would shape it to the World Championship winning organization you see today. Royale Gracie, known as the king of the BJJ featherweight division, Royale Gracie was the first featherweight to win 4 World Championship titles. These days Royale is well known for running the BJJ team Gracie Jr in Rio de Janeiro with his brother Rolker Gracie. Here he would go on to coach other world champions such as Megaton, Diaz, Xande Ribeiro, Omar Salam, Renato Barreto and numerous others. In 2010, Royale moved to California, where he would set up the headquarters of the team. Royce Gracie. Royce Gracie is the legendary MMA fighter of the family and is most notably the sport's biggest historical figure. Featuring in the very early days of the UFC, Royce would use his Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills to overpower and submit opponents much larger than he was, making MMA and jiu-jitsu the sports they are today. In 2003, Royce was inducted in the UFC Hall of Fame for his contribution to the growth of the sport. Stay tuned for the third and the current generation.